You think I don't know you've been meeting him? My mother's voice sliced through the steam rising from my bathwater. You think I don't know about the temple, about the demon? I kept my face still. The water had gone cold an hour ago, but I hadn't moved. My wedding dress hung on the wooden rack behind me, the white silk heavy with embroidery that had taken 3 women 6 months to complete. Peonies, auspicious clouds, double happiness symbols, all of it stitched with threads so fine you could barely see the knots. The ceremony was in 4 hours. You've been seen, my mother continued, her slippers clicking against the stone floor as she circled the bath. 3 times now. 3 times you've gone to that bamboo grove. Do you have any idea what people are saying? I was gathering herbs, I said, for the wedding feast. The kitchen ran out of... Liar. She grabbed my chin and forced my face toward hers. Her fingers were cold. I raised you better than this. I taught you how to lie convincingly. That was pathetic. I pulled my chin free. Then why are you asking if you already know the answer? She struck me across the face. The sound echoed off the tiled walls. My cheek burned, but I didn't react. I had learned years ago not to give her the satisfaction. You'll go to that ceremony, she said, her voice dropping to something barely above a whisper. You will marry Lin Wei. And you will never speak of that demon again. Do you understand? Yes, mother. She stared at me for a long moment, searching my face for defiance. She found none. I had spent 20 years perfecting my mask of obedience. Good, she said, releasing my chin.
Get dressed.
The matchmaker will be here in an hour to check your hair. She left, and I sat in the cold water, staring at my reflection in the bronze mirror across the room. My face was pale. My cheek was already starting to swell. But my eyes were steady that I had been meeting Shinwu. Not for the reasons my mother imagined. I had been learning, watching, preparing. The wedding was not going to happen. When I stepped into the main hall 2 hours later, my hair piled high with jade pins and my face painted to hide the bruise, I saw Lin Wei for the first time in 3 months. He looked thinner. His robes hung loose on his shoulders, and there were dark circles under his eyes. But he smiled when he saw me, that same gentle, uncertain smile he'd worn since we were children. You look beautiful, he said, stepping forward to take my hands. Thank you, I said. My voice came out flat, but he didn't seem to notice. Are you nervous? He asked, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. I'm nervous, but my mother says it's normal. She says all brides are nervous on their wedding day. I looked over his shoulder. Madame Lin was standing near the altar, speaking with the matchmaker in low, urgent tones. She caught my eye and smiled. It was the smile of a woman who knew she'd won. I'm not nervous, I said. Lin Wei laughed. Always so brave. That's what I love about you.
Love.
The word tasted sour in my mouth. The ceremony began. We knelt before the altar. We bowed to heaven and earth. We bowed to his parents, who sat on cushioned chairs with expressions of barely concealed satisfaction. And then we bowed to each other, that I felt something shift in my chest as I lowered my head. Not love. Not regret. Something colder. The weight of all the years I'd spent as a bargaining chip, as a dowry, as a solution to my father's debts. The weight of every time I'd been told to be quiet, to be small, to be grateful. Madame Lin rose from her seat. The tea ceremony, she announced. Bring the cups. A servant girl approached with a tray.
2 cups of tea.
1 for the groom's mother. 1 for the groom's father. Lin Wei took the first cup and knelt in front of his mother. Please, mother, drink this tea. She accepted it with a gracious smile. I am blessed to have such a filial son. And such a promising daughter-in-law. She looked at me. You will take good care of him, won't you? Of course, Madame Lin. I said. I reached for the second cup, and then the doors of the hall burst open. Everyone turned. A man stood in the doorway, his face streaked with mud and sweat. He was a servant. I recognized him as one of the groomsmen from Lin Wei's household. Madam, he gasped, his chest heaving. Madam, there's been a fire. Madame Lin's face went white. What fire? Where? The warehouse, he said. The main one. The one where we store the tea leaves. She staggered as if struck. Impossible. I checked the locks myself this morning. It started in the back, the man said. Near the drying racks. The flames spread fast. Half the inventory is gone. The other half. Stop, she snapped. I need to see it.
Now.
She swept out of the hall without a backward glance. Her husband followed, his face pale. The servants scattered. Within minutes, the hall was empty except for me, Lin Wei, and the matchmaker, who was wringing her hands and muttering about bad omens. Lin Wei stared at the door where his mother had disappeared. What do we do? I set down my teacup. We wait. But the ceremony is over, I said. The marriage has been witnessed. We're bound. There's nothing more to do. He looked at me with that helpless expression I knew so well. Are you angry about the fire? I'm not angry, I said. And I wasn't. Because I knew exactly who had started it. 3 weeks ago, Shunwu had shown me the layout of the Lin warehouse. He had marked the weak points, the dry timber near the back wall, the oil lamps that were left burning overnight. He had explained how a single spark, placed correctly, could destroy months of profit. I'm not asking you to be an arsonist, he had said. I'm asking you to understand that destruction isn't always violent. Sometimes it's just a small push in the right direction. I had given the push. I had paid a street urchin 5 coins to start a fire and run, and now, as Lin Wei paced the empty hall, I watched the chaos unfold from a window. Servants ran back and forth carrying buckets of water. Smoke billowed from the direction of the warehouse. Madame Lin's voice could be heard shrieking orders. We should help, Lin Wei said, making for the door. Wait, I said. He turned. Wait for what? I stepped closer to him. Close enough to see the confusion in his eyes. Your mother is going to be very upset, I said. She's going to need someone to blame. His face tightened. She won't blame you. You were here the whole time. No, I said. She'll blame your father. Or the servants. Or the gods. But eventually, she'll figure out the truth. What truth? I didn't answer. I simply watched him struggle with the question. He wanted to believe the best of me. He always had. It was his greatest weakness. The hours passed. The fire was contained, but not before destroying nearly everything in the warehouse. Madame Lin returned to the hall with soot on her robes and murder in her eyes. The tea is gone, she announced. All of it. 3 years of profit. Her husband opened his mouth to speak. She cut him off with a gesture. Don't. Just don't. She turned to me. This is your fault. I blinked. Madam, don't play innocent, she hissed. You've been meeting that demon. You've been plotting with him. This is his doing. I know it. Lin Wei stepped between us. Mother, she was here the whole time. I saw her. Everyone saw her. She has accomplices, Madame Lin spat. That's how she operates. She pretends to be pure and helpless, but behind the scenes, she's scheming. Aren't you scheming? I asked quietly. She froze. What did you say, your husband's mistress? I said. The one in Lingxi. The son. The hall went silent. Madame Lin's face drained of color. How do you know about that? I know a lot of things, I said. I know about the bribes you've paid to the tax officials. I know about the forged land deeds. I know about the loan you gave my father with the interest that would have bankrupted him within 5 years, even if I'd married your son. Lin Wei was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. What are you talking about? Your mother, I said, has been running a criminal enterprise for 20 years. And she's about to get caught. Madame Lin laughed. It was a brittle, desperate sound. You think you can threaten me or nothing? You're a girl from a bankrupt family, with a ruined reputation. No one will believe you. They will when they find this. I reached into my sleeve and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was a list of names, dates, amounts. Every bribe, every forged document, every transaction that Madame Lin had tried to hide. I had spent the last 3 months gathering this information. Shun Wu's network of informants, his careful observation, his patient accumulation of evidence, all of it had come down to this single sheet of paper. Madame Lin lunged for it. I stepped back, holding it out of reach. That's a copy, I said. The original is with the regional inspector. He'll be here by morning. You're lying. You can send a writer to check. but it'll take him 8 hours to reach the capital and 8 hours to return. By then, the inspector will already be here. She stared at me, her chest heaving. For the first time in my life, I saw fear in her eyes. "I'll ruin you," she whispered. "I'll make sure everyone knows what you are." "They already know what I am," I said. "They think I'm a demon's lover. They think I'm cursed. They already hate me. There's nothing you can take from me that hasn't already been taken." Lin Wei stepped forward.
Wait.
"Let's talk about this. There has to be a way." "There is a way," I said. "The engagement is off. I'm not marrying him." "You can't do that," Madame Lin said. "The ceremony was already." "I can, and I will," I said. The tea was never served. The vows were exchanged, but the tea was never drunk. According to custom, the marriage isn't complete until the bride serves tea to her in-laws. And I'm not serving tea to you. Not today. Not ever. Madame Lin's face contorted with rage. "You think this is over, you think you've won. I said, that you have bigger problems than me right now. Your warehouse is destroyed. The inspector is coming. And your husband's mistress is going to demand recognition for her son. By the time this is over, you'll be lucky to keep your own home, let alone your wealth." I turned to leave, but Lin Wei grabbed my wrist. "Please," he said, "don't walk away. We can fix this. We can. Let go of me." His grip tightened. "I love you. I've always loved you. Whatever you think I've done wrong, I can make it right. Just give me a chance." I looked at his hand on my wrist. I looked at his face, that soft, gentle face that had never once stood up to his mother. I thought about all the years I had spent hoping he would become someone else he never would. "No," I said. "You don't love me. You love the idea of me. The idea of having a wife who would make you feel less alone, less weak, less helpless. But you're not helpless, Lin Wei. You just don't want to fight." I pulled my wrist free. "Let me go." He did that. I walked out of the hall and into the courtyard. The air was thick with smoke from the warehouse, and the sky was red with the dying embers. I could hear Madame Lin screaming behind me. I could hear Lin Wei calling my name. I didn't look back. The path to the bamboo grove was dark, but I knew it by heart. I had walked it 100 times in the last 3 months. Every step was familiar. The uneven stones, the overgrown roots, the sharp turn near the old well. Shan Wu was waiting for me at the edge of the grove. He was dressed in black, his scarred face half hidden and shadowed. "It's done," he asked. "It's done," I said. "The fire, the list, the inspector's notice, everything." He nodded slowly. "And Lin Wei," he tried to stop me. He begged. And I walked away. Shan Wu studied my face. I knew what he was looking for. Regret, hesitation, any sign that I might change my mind. He wouldn't find any. "You're sure about this?" he asked. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." He nodded again, then turned and began walking into the grove. I followed him. We walked for a long time in silence. The moon was full, casting silver light through the bamboo stalks. The sounds of the village faded behind us, the shouts, the running footsteps, the crackling of the fire. When we reached the temple, Shinwu stopped at the threshold. "Welcome home," he said. I stepped past him into the warm glow of the hearth. "Thank you," I said. "Don't thank me yet," he replied. "Madame Lin is still breathing. And she's not the type to forgive." "I know," I said. "Then you also know what comes next." I turned to face him. The firelight flickered across his scarred features, softening the hardness of his expression. He was no longer a demon to me. He was something else. "First, we wait for the inspector to arrive," I said. "Then, when Madame Lin is busy trying to save herself, we find the rest of the evidence. The loans she forced on other families. The kickbacks she took from the merchants. Every crime she's ever committed. And then we end her." Shun Wu smiled. "That's my student." I felt something shift in my chest as he said the words. Not pride, exactly. Something deeper, that I had been raised to be a good wife, a quiet daughter, a harmless woman, that I was none of those things anymore tonight. I said, "I want to start making a list. Everyone who helped her. everyone who looked the other way, everyone who profited from her cruelty. That's a long list, Shinwu said. I have time. We sat by the fire until dawn, plotting the downfall of everyone who had wronged us. And when the first rays of light touched the temple roof, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not the hope of a better life. Not the hope of love or happiness. A different kind of hope. The hope of justice. Of consequence. Of watching the powerful fall. The demon had taught me well, but the demon wasn't the only one with sharp teeth. I was learning. You think I don't know you've been meeting him? My mother's voice sliced through the steam rising from my bathwater. You think I don't know about the temple, about the demon? I kept my face still. The water had gone cold an hour ago, but I hadn't moved. My wedding dress hung on the wooden rack behind me, the white silk heavy with embroidery that had taken 3 women 6 months to complete. Peonies, auspicious clouds, double happiness symbols. All of it stitched with threads so fine you could barely see the knots. The ceremony was in 4 hours. You've been seen, my mother continued, her slippers clicking against the stone floor as she circled the bath. 3 times now. 3 times you've gone to that bamboo grove. Do you have any idea what people are saying? I was gathering herbs, I said, for the wedding feast. The kitchen ran out of... Liar. She grabbed my chin and forced my face toward hers. Her fingers were cold. I raised you better than this. I taught you how to lie convincingly. That was pathetic. I pulled my chin free. Then why are you asking if you already know the answer? She struck me across the face. The sound echoed off the tiled walls. My cheek burned, but I didn't react. I had learned years ago not to give her the satisfaction. You'll go to that ceremony, she said, her voice dropping to something barely above a whisper. You will marry Lin Wei. And you will never speak of that demon again. Do you understand? Yes, mother. She stared at me for a long moment, searching my face for defiance. She found none. I had spent 20 years perfecting my mask of obedience. Good, she said, releasing my chin.
Get dressed.
The matchmaker will be here in an hour to check your hair. She left, and I sat in the cold water, staring at my reflection in the bronze mirror across the room. My face was pale. My cheek was already starting to swell. But my eyes were steady that I had been meeting Shinwu, not for the reasons my mother imagined. I had been learning, watching, preparing. The wedding was not going to happen. When I stepped into the main hall 2 hours later, my hair piled high with jade pins and my face painted to hide the bruise, I saw Lin Wei for the first time in 3 months. He looked thinner. His robes hung loose on his shoulders, and there were dark circles under his eyes. But he smiled when he saw me, that same gentle, uncertain smile he'd worn since we were children. You look beautiful, he said, stepping forward to take my hands. Thank you, I said. My voice came out flat, but he didn't seem to notice. Are you nervous? He asked, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. I'm nervous, but my mother says it's normal. She says all brides are nervous on their wedding day. I looked over his shoulder. Madame Lin was standing near the altar, speaking with the matchmaker in low, urgent tones. She caught my eye and smiled. It was the smile of a woman who knew she'd won. I'm not nervous, I said. Lin Wei laughed. Always so brave. That's what I love about you.
Love.
The word tasted sour in my mouth. The ceremony began. We knelt before the altar. We bowed to heaven and earth. We bowed to his parents, who sat on cushioned chairs with expressions of barely concealed satisfaction. And then we bowed to each other. I felt something shift in my chest as I lowered my head. Not love. Not regret. Something colder. The weight of all the years I'd spent as a bargaining chip, as a dowry, as a solution to my father's debts. The weight of every time I'd been told to be quiet, to be small, to be grateful. Madame Lin rose from her seat. The tea ceremony, she announced. Bring the cups. A servant girl approached with a tray. 2 cups of tea. 1 for the groom's mother. 1 for the groom's father. Lin Wei took the first cup and knelt in front of his mother. Please, mother, drink this tea. She accepted it with a gracious smile. I am blessed to have such a filial son. And such a promising daughter-in-law. She looked at me. You'll take good care of him, won't you? Of course, Madam Lin, I said. I reached for the second cup, and then the doors of the hall burst open. Everyone turned. A man stood in the doorway, his face streaked with mud and sweat. He was a servant. I recognized him as one of the groomsmen from Lin Wei's household. Madam, he gasped, his chest heaving. Madam, there's been a fire. Madam Lin's face went white. What fire? Where? The warehouse, he said. The main one. The one where we store the tea leaves. She staggered as if struck. Impossible. I checked the locks myself this morning. It started in the back, the man said. Near the drying racks. The flames spread fast. Half the inventory is gone. The other half. Stop, she snapped. I need to see it. Now. She swept out of the hall without a backward glance. Her husband followed, his face pale. The servants scattered. Within minutes, the hall was empty except for me, Lin Wei, and the matchmaker, who was wringing her hands and muttering about bad omens. Lin Wei stared at the door where his mother had disappeared. What do we do? I set down my teacup. We wait. But the ceremony is over, I said. The marriage has been witnessed. We're bound. There's nothing more to do. He looked at me with that helpless expression I knew so well. Are you angry about the fire? I'm not angry, I said. And I wasn't, because I knew exactly who had started it. 3 weeks ago, Shen Wu had shown me the layout of the Lin warehouse. He had marked the weak points, the dry timber near the back wall, the oil lamps that were left burning overnight. He had explained how a single spark, placed correctly, could destroy months of profit. I'm not asking you to be an arsonist, he had said. I'm asking you to understand that destruction isn't always violent. Sometimes it's just a small push in the right direction. I had given the push. I had paid a street urchin 5 coins to start a fire and run. Now, as Lin Wei paced the empty hall, I watched the chaos unfold from a window. Servants ran back and forth carrying buckets of water. Smoke billowed from the direction of the warehouse. Madam Lin's voice could be heard shrieking orders. We should help, Lin Wei said, making for the door. Wait, I said. He turned. Wait for what? I stepped closer to him, close enough to see the confusion in his eyes. Your mother is going to be very upset, I said. She's going to need someone to blame. His face tightened. She won't blame you. You were here the whole time. No, I said. She'll blame your father, or the servants, or the gods. But eventually, she'll figure out the truth. What truth? I didn't answer. I simply watched him struggle with the question. He wanted to believe the best of me. He always had. It was his greatest weakness. The hours passed. The fire was contained, but not before destroying nearly everything in the warehouse. Madam Lin returned to the hall with soot on her robes and murder in her eyes. The tea is gone, she announced. All of it. 3 years of profit. Her husband opened his mouth to speak. She cut him off with a gesture. Don't. Just don't. She turned to me. This is your fault. I blinked. Madam, don't play innocent, she hissed. You've been meeting that demon. You've been plotting with him. This is his doing. I know it. Lin Wei stepped between us. Mother, she was here the whole time. I saw her. Everyone saw her. She has accomplices, Madam Lin spat. That's how she operates. She pretends to be pure and helpless, but behind the scenes, she's scheming. Aren't you scheming? I asked quietly. She froze. What did you say? Your husband's mistress, I said. The one in Lingxi. The son. The hall went silent. Madam Lin's face drained of color. How do you know about that? I know a lot of things, I said. I know about the bribes you've paid to the tax officials. I know about the forged land deeds. I know about the loan you gave my father with the interest that would have bankrupted him within 5 years, even if I'd married your son. Lin Wei was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. What are you talking about? Your mother, I said, has been running a criminal enterprise for 20 years. And she's about to get caught. Madam Lin laughed. It was a brittle, desperate sound. You think you can threaten me or nothing? You're a girl from a bankrupt family with a ruined reputation. No one will believe you. They will when they find this. I reached into my sleeve and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was a list of names, dates, amounts. Every bribe, Every forged document. Every transaction that Madam Lin had tried to hide. I had spent the last 3 months gathering this information. Shen Wu's network of informants, his careful observation, his patient accumulation of evidence, all of it had come down to this single sheet of paper. Madam Lin lunged for it. I stepped back, holding it out of reach. "That's a copy," I said. "The original is with the regional inspector. He'll be here by morning." "You're lying." You can send a rider to check. But it'll take him 8 hours to reach the capital and 8 hours to return. By then, the inspector will already be here." She stared at me, her chest heaving. For the first time in my life, I saw fear in her eyes. "I'll ruin you," she whispered. "I'll make sure everyone knows what you are." "They already know what I am," I said. "They think I'm a demon's lover. They think I'm cursed. They already hate me. There's nothing you can take from me that hasn't already been taken." Lin Wei stepped forward.
Wait.
"Let's talk about this. There has to be a way." "There is a way," I said. "The engagement is off. I'm not marrying him." "You can't do that," Madam Lin said. "The ceremony was already." "I can, and I will," I said. The tea was never served. The vows were exchanged, but the tea was never drunk. According to custom, the marriage isn't complete until the bride serves tea to her in-laws. And I'm not serving tea to you. Not today. Not ever. Madam Lin's face contorted with rage. "You think this is over, you think you've won. I said, that you have bigger problems than me right now. Your warehouse is destroyed. The inspector is coming. And your husband's mistress is going to demand recognition for her son. By the time this is over, you'll be lucky to keep your own home, let alone your wealth." I turned to leave, but Lin Wei grabbed my wrist. "Please," he said. "Don't walk away.
We can fix this."
We can. Let go of me." His grip tightened. "I love you. I've always loved you. Whatever you think I've done wrong, I can make it right. Just give me a chance." I looked at his hand on my wrist. I looked at his face. That soft, gentle face that had never once stood up to his mother. I thought about all the years I had spent hoping he would become someone else. He never would. "No," I said. "You don't love me. You love the idea of me. The idea of having a wife who would make you feel less alone, less weak, less helpless. But you're not helpless, Lin Wei. You just don't want to fight." I pulled my wrist free. "Let me go." He did that. I walked out of the hall and into the courtyard. The air was thick with smoke from the warehouse, and the sky was red with the dying embers. I could hear Madam Lin screaming behind me. I could hear Lin Wei calling my name, but I didn't look back. The path to the bamboo grove was dark, but I knew it by heart. I had walked it 100 times in the last 3 months. Every step was familiar. The uneven stones, the overgrown roots, the sharp turn near the old well. Shen Wu was waiting for me at the edge of the grove. He was dressed in black, his scarred face half hidden in shadow. "It's done," he asked. "It's done?" I said. "The fire."
The list.
"The inspector's notice." "Everything." He nodded slowly. "And Lin Wei," he tried to stop me. He begged. And I walked away. Shen Wu studied my face. I knew what he was looking for. Regret, hesitation, any sign that I might change my mind. He wouldn't find any. "You're sure about this?" he asked. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." He nodded again, then turned and began walking into the grove. I followed him. We walked for a long time in silence. The moon was full, casting silver light through the bamboo stalks. The sounds of the village faded behind us, the shouts, the running footsteps, the crackling of the fire. When we reached the temple, Shen Wu stopped at the threshold. "Welcome home," he said. I stepped past him into the warm glow of the hearth. "Thank you," I said. "Don't thank me yet," he replied. "Madam Lin is still breathing, and she's not the type to forgive." "I know," I said. "Then you also know what comes next." I turned to face him. The firelight flickered across his scarred features, softening the hardness of his expression. He was no longer a demon to me. He was something else. "First, we wait for the inspector to arrive," I said. "Then, When Madame Lin is busy trying to save herself, we find the rest of the evidence. The loans she forced on other families. The kickbacks she took from the merchants. Every crime she's ever committed. And then we end her. Shun Wu smiled. That's my student. I felt something shift in my chest as he said the words. Not pride, exactly. Something deeper, that I had been raised to be a good wife. A quiet daughter. A harmless woman, that I was none of those things anymore tonight. I said, I want to start making a list. Everyone who helped her. Everyone who looked the other way. Everyone who profited from her cruelty. That's a long list, Shinwu said. I have time. We sat by the fire until dawn, plotting the downfall of everyone who had wronged us. And when the first rays of light touched the temple roof, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope, but not the hope of a better life. Not the hope of love or happiness. A different kind of hope. The hope of justice. Of consequence. Of watching the powerful fall. The demon had taught me well, but the demon wasn't the only one with sharp teeth. I was learning. The regional inspector arrived at dawn, just as I had promised. I watched from the hill above the village as his procession wound through the main gate, 6 mounted guards in matching blue uniforms, a carriage with gilded trim, and the inspector himself riding a tall black horse with a silver-studded bridle. He was a thin man with a sharp beard and eyes that missed nothing. I had seen him once before, years ago, when he came to audit the local tax records. My father had spent 3 days in a panic, burning ledgers and bribing clerks. The inspector had found nothing then. He would find everything now. I returned to the temple and found Shinwu grinding herbs at the stone table. He didn't look up when I entered. He's here, I said. I know. He continued grinding, the pestle moving in slow, rhythmic circles. I have men watching the Lin compound. They'll report back within the hour. How long before he interviews Madame Lin? He'll start at the merchants, Shinwu said. He always does. They'll tell him about the bribes, the inflated prices, the stolen land. By the time he reaches the Lin household, he'll already have enough evidence to arrest her. I sat down across from him. And the list, the one I gave him, he received it 3 days ago. A servant delivered it to his residence in the capital, along with an anonymous letter detailing every transaction. He'll have spent the journey memorizing the details. You think he'll act on it? Shinwu stopped grinding and looked at me. The inspector's name is Zhao Ming. He's been in office for 12 years, and he's never made a major arrest. His superiors think he's useless. His subordinates think he's lazy. But the truth is, he's just been waiting. Waiting for what? For someone to hand him a case he can't lose. Shan Wu set down the pestle and wiped his hands on his robe. Madame Lin is powerful, but she's not untouchable. Her corruption has been an open secret for years. The only reason no one's moved against her is because no one wanted to risk the backlash. But now she's weak. The fire destroyed her inventory. Her husband's affair is public knowledge. And she has no allies left. You sound like you've done this before. I've made it my business to understand how power works, he said. Power is a house of cards. You don't need to knock it down all at once. You just need to remove the right card at the right moment. I wanted to ask him what card he had removed in his own past. What had made him into the man he was now. But I knew better than to pry. The hours passed slowly. I tried to meditate, tried to focus on the tasks ahead. But my mind kept returning to the Lin compound. To Lin Wei. I wondered if he had tried to warn his mother. If he had stood by her side as the inspector arrived, or if he had fled like he always did when things got difficult. At midday, a messenger arrived at the temple. He was a young boy, no more than 12, with dirt on his cheeks and a scrap of paper clutched in his hand. From the village, he said, handing me the note. The man with the scarred face said to give it to you. I unfolded the paper. The handwriting was neat and precise. Madame Lin arrested. House seized. Lin Wei detained for questioning. The inspector requests your presence at the compound by sundown. Did I read the note 3 times, trying to process the words. Arrested.
Seized. Detained.
The plan had worked. It had actually worked. What does it say? Shen Wu asked. I handed him the note. He read it in silence, then nodded slowly. You should go. To the compound. Why? The inspector wants to see you. He probably needs your testimony. And there's something else. He paused, looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Lin Wei is detained. That means he's still at the compound. You'll see him there. I felt my stomach tighten. I don't want to see him. You don't have a choice, Shinwu said. If you want the case to go forward, you need to cooperate with the inspector. That means answering his questions. That means facing the people who wronged you. Even him, especially him. He folded the note and tucked it into his sleeve. You've done well, but this isn't over. The inspector needs you to complete the picture. Without your testimony, Madame Lin's lawyers might find a loophole. They might argue that she was framed, that the evidence was planted. But it wasn't. I know. The inspector knows. But the court doesn't know yet. That's why you need to go. I stood up, smoothing my robes. Will you come with me? No, he said. I'm still a demon to most people. If I walk into that compound, it'll cause more problems than it solves. You need to do this on your own. I felt a wave of fear, quickly suppressed. What if I can't? What if I freeze or say the wrong thing? Or, then you'll learn from it. He stepped closer, his voice dropping. You're not the same woman who ran from that compound 3 months ago. You've changed. You're stronger now. And you have something you didn't have before. What? Evidence, he said.
Facts.
The truth. They can't argue with the truth. I walked to the compound alone. The path was familiar, but everything looked different now. The trees seemed taller. The houses seemed smaller. The people I passed on the road stared at me with expressions of recognition and unease. They knew who I was. They knew what I had done. When I reached the Lin compound, the gates were wide open. Guards in blue uniforms stood at the entrance, their spears glinting in the late afternoon sun. One of them stepped forward as I approached. Your name, he asked. Lin Wei's former betrothed, I said. The inspector sent for me. He consulted a list on his tablet, then nodded. This way. He led me through the courtyard, past the servants' quarters, past the main hall where the wedding ceremony had been interrupted. The compound felt empty.
Hollow.
The silence was punctuated only by the sounds of soldiers searching rooms and sealing doors. The inspector had set up his office in the family's private study. He was seated at the mahogany desk, surrounded by stacks of ledgers and documents. He looked up as I entered, his sharp eyes scanning me from head to toe. You're the woman who sent the letter, he said. It wasn't a question. Yes, Inspector.
Sit.
He gestured to a chair in front of the desk. I need to ask you some questions.
Set.
The chair was low, making me look up at him. It was a deliberate choice, designed to put me at a disadvantage.
I didn't let it bother me.
You lived in this household for several years, he said. Is that correct? I was betrothed to Lin Wei for 7 years. I visited frequently. Then you would have had access to the family's records, to their business dealings, to their secrets. Yes. He leaned forward. The letter you sent, the list of bribes, the forged deeds, the illegal loans. How did you obtain that information, Shinwu? I said. The man they call the demon. He's been gathering intelligence for years. He passed it to me. Inspector Zhao's eyes narrowed. The demon. The one who lives in the abandoned temple. Why would he help you? Because he hates the Lin family, I said. Because they tried to destroy him. Because they're responsible for more suffering than you can possibly imagine. And what about you? Why did you help him? I met his gaze. Because they tried to destroy me too. He was silent for a moment, studying my face. I could see him weighing my words, trying to decide if I was telling the truth. Finally, he nodded. The evidence is solid, he said. Madame Lin has been charged with fraud, bribery, and the falsification of official documents. She'll be tried in the capital within the month. If convicted, she'll lose her property and her title. She might even face exile. And Lin Wei, he's being questioned as a potential accomplice. He claims he knew nothing about his mother's activities. Do you believe him? I thought about Lin Wei's helplessness, his unwillingness to confront his mother, his constant retreat into silence. Yes, I said. I believe he didn't know. He was too weak to ask questions.
Too weak to act.
He just went along with whatever his mother told him. Then he's a fool, the inspector said. But that's not a crime. No, I agreed. It's not. The inspector dismissed me after another hour of questions. I walked through the compound, trying to find the way out, and found myself in the garden where Lin Wei and I had spent so many afternoons as children. The plum tree was still there, its branches heavy with fruit. The stone bench was still there, worn smooth by years of use. And Lin Wei was there too. He was sitting on the bench, his hands clasped in front of him, his face pale and drawn. He looked up as I approached, and I saw something flicker in his eyes.
Surprise. Pain.
Something else I couldn't name. You came, he said. The inspector summoned me. I know. I heard. He stood up, his movements slow and uncertain. I asked him to let me talk to you. He said it was up to you. You wanted to talk. I wanted to tell you. He stopped, his voice catching. I wanted to tell you that I'm sorry. Sorry for what? For everything. For not standing up to my mother. For letting her humiliate you. For not fighting for you. He took a step closer. I know you don't believe me. I know you think I'm weak. And you're right. I was weak. I've always been weak. Then why are you telling me this now? Because I've lost everything, he said. My family, my home, my future. And I finally understand what it feels like to have nothing. To be nothing. He looked at me, his eyes wet with tears. You felt that way too. That day in the hall. When my mother humiliated you. When I didn't stop her. Yes, I said. I felt that way. I should have stopped her, he said. I should have protected you. But I didn't. And now I'll never be able to make it right. He reached out his hand, as if to touch my face. I stepped back. Don't, I said. He dropped his hand. You're angry. I'm not angry, I said. I stopped being angry a long time ago. I just don't feel anything for you anymore. He flinched as if I'd struck him. That's worse than anger. Maybe it is, I said. But it's the truth. I turned and walked away. He called my name, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back. The sun was setting by the time I reached the bamboo grove. The light filtered through the stalks in shades of orange and gold. The path was familiar now, worn smooth by my footsteps. Xinwu was waiting at the temple gate. He looked at my face, and I knew he could see the exhaustion in my eyes. It's done, I said. It's done, he echoed. You spoke to the inspector. You answered his questions. And you saw Lin Wei. Yes. How do you feel? I thought about it. The anger was gone. The hurt was gone. What remained was something quieter. Something like peace. I feel like I can finally move forward, I said. Xinwu nodded slowly. Then we moved forward. He opened the temple door and I stepped inside. The fire was burning in the hearth. The herbs were drying on the shelves. Everything was exactly as I had left it, but nothing was the same. That I had started this journey as a victim. As a woman who had been wronged, humiliated, abandoned. And I was still those things. But I was also something else. Something stronger. Something that Madame Lin, in her arrogance, had never anticipated. I was a woman who had learned how to fight back, and I wasn't finished yet. Tomorrow, I said, we start the next phase. What next phase? Xinwu asked. The other families, I said. The ones who helped Madame Lin. The ones who profited from her crimes. They're still out there. They're still hurting people. And they need to be stopped. Xinwu smiled. That's a long list. I told you, I said. I have time. He laughed, a low, genuine sound that I had never heard from him before. You remind me of myself, he said. When I first started. I'll take that as a compliment. Take it however you want, he said. Just don't forget the lesson. What lesson? Revenge is a fire, he said. It can warm you. It can light your way. But if you're not careful, it can burn you alive. I looked at the fire in the hearth, watching the flames dance and crackle. I thought about Madame Lin, sitting in a cell somewhere, her power stripped away. I thought about Lin Wei, alone and broken. I thought about all the people who had wronged me, all the people who had made my life small. And I made a choice. I'll be careful, I said, but even as I said the words, I knew they were a lie. I didn't want to be careful. I wanted to be powerful. I wanted to be feared. I wanted to become the demon that everyone whispered about, and I would, one by one, I would take down everyone who had ever stood in my way. One by one, I would build something of my own. A legacy.
A name.
A future that no one could take from me. The fire crackled. The night deepened. And in the temple of the demon, I began to plan. The first family on the list was the Zhongs. Madame Lin's most loyal allies. They had helped her falsify documents. They had helped her evade taxes. They had helped her destroy my father. They would be the first to fall, but that was tomorrow. Tonight, I let myself rest. I lay down on the straw mattress in the side room, staring at the ceiling as the moonlight filtered through the cracks. The events of the day played through my mind. The inspector's questions. Lin Wei's apology. Shun Wu's warning. Revenge is a fire. I had started the fire. Now I had to make sure it didn't consume me. I closed my eyes and let myself sleep. In the morning, the work would begin. Your father is dying. My mother's voice came through the temple door before I even opened it. She was standing on the threshold, her hair undone, her robes wrinkled, her face streaked with tears that looked more like rage than grief. Behind her, two servants waited with their heads bowed. I didn't step aside. I didn't invite her in. I stood in the doorway and looked at her the way she had looked at me so many times before, cold, assessing, unmoved. What do you want? He wants to see you, she said. Before he dies. He's been asking for you for weeks. I told him you were gone. I told him you were dead. But he won't stop. Then tell him I'm not coming. She pushed past me into the temple, her eyes darting around the small space. She saw the herbs drying on the shelves, the scrolls stacked on the table, the mat by the fire where I slept. She saw everything and understood nothing. You live here, she said, her voice dripping with disgust. With him, the demon. I live here. I agreed. Your father is dying in a rented room above a tea house, she said. He has no money.
No servants.
No one to care for him. And you live here, in this hovel, with a murderer. He's not a murderer, I said. But even if he was, I'd still prefer his company to yours. She flinched. The words hit harder than I had expected. I saw the flash of hurt in her eyes before she masked it with anger. You owe him, she said. He raised you. He fed you. He gave you a roof over your head. And this is how you repay him. By abandoning him. He sold me, I said. He took a loan from the Lin family and used me as collateral. He would have handed me over to Lin Wei like a sack of rice if it meant clearing his debts. He didn't raise me. He bargained with me. He did what he had to do, she said, to survive. And I'm doing what I have to do, to survive. We stood there, facing each other, the years of resentment thick between us. I could see her struggling. She had come here expecting guilt. She had come here expecting me to crumble. She didn't know how to handle the woman I had become. He's in pain, she said finally. He can barely eat. He can barely breathe. The doctor says it's his lungs. Years of working in the damp. Years of worrying. He doesn't have much time. How much? A week? Maybe less. I felt something twist in my chest. Not guilt. Not love. Something older and more complicated. Memory that I remembered my father before the debts. Before the loans. Before the Lin family. I remembered him lifting me onto his shoulders so I could pick fruit from the plum tree. I remembered him teaching me to write my name, his calloused hand over mine. I remembered him laughing. I hadn't seen that man in years. Where is he? I asked. She told me. The room above the tea house on the east side of the village. The one with the broken shutter. I knew the place that I told her I would come. She looked at me with suspicion, as if waiting for me to change my mind. I didn't. I closed the door and went back inside. Shunwu came out of the side room where he had been listening. Are you going? Yes. Why? Because he asked for me. That's not an answer. I turned to face him. Because I need to see him. To look at him. To see what he's become. And to remember what he did to me. Shunwu was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. I'll come with you. No, I said. I need to do this alone. The tea house was quiet when I arrived. The owner recognized me, gave me a sympathetic look, and pointed up the stairs. I climbed slowly, The wooden steps creaking beneath my weight, the door was open. I could see him inside, lying on a narrow bed with a thin blanket pulled up to his chin. His face was gaunt, his cheekbones sharp, his skin sallow. He looked small. Broken. "Father," I said. He turned his head. It took him a moment to focus on me. When he did, his eyes widened. "You came." "I came." He tried to sit up, but the effort was too much. He fell back against the pillow, gasping. "I didn't think you would. Your mother said you were gone. She said you had left the village." "I did leave. But I'm back now." "With the demon," he said. I couldn't read his expression. "They say you live with him now."
Ido.
He was silent for a moment. Then he said, "I'm sorry." I didn't respond. "I'm sorry for everything," he said. "For the debts. For the betrothal. For letting them use you. I was weak. I was scared. I wanted to protect you, but I didn't know how." "You protected yourself," I said. "Yes." His voice cracked. "I did. And I've been paying for it ever since." He started coughing, a wet, rattling sound that seemed to shake his entire body. I waited for the fit to pass. "Your mother says you found evidence against the Lins," he said. "She says you're the one who brought them down." "I found evidence," I said. "I brought them down." "Then you're stronger than me," he said. "Stronger than I ever was." He reached out his hand, a thin, trembling gesture. "I'm proud of you." I stared at the hand. I should have felt something. Gratitude. Forgiveness. Reluctant affection. But all I felt was tired. "I'm not here for your approval," I said. "Then why are you here?" I didn't answer. I didn't know how to tell him that I was here to close a door. To say goodbye. To finally let go. That I sat with him for the rest of the afternoon. We didn't speak much. There wasn't much to say. He asked me about the temple, about Shunwu, about the village. I gave him answers that were brief and careful. When the sun began to set, I stood up. "Where are you going?" he asked. "Back to the temple." "Will you come again?" "I don't know." He nodded slowly, accepting the answer. "Thank you," he said, "for coming, for not turning me away." I left the room and walked back down the stairs. The tea house owner was sweeping the floor. He looked up as I passed. "Your mother's waiting outside," he said. I stepped out into the evening air. My mother was standing by the well, her arms crossed, her face tight with anxiety. "How is he?" she asked. "He's dying." "I know that. But how is he? Is he in pain?" "Of course he's in pain. He's dying." I walked past her. She caught my arm. "Wait." I stopped. "You think I don't see it?" she said. "You think I don't see how much you hate us?" "Hate is too strong a word," I said. "I don't hate you. I don't love you either. I just don't think about you anymore." Her face crumpled. "You're cruel. You taught me." I walked away. She called after me, but I didn't stop. 3 days later, my father died. I heard the news from the tea house owner, who came to the temple to tell me. I didn't cry. I didn't mourn. I felt something cold and final settle in my chest, like a lock clicking shut. The funeral was small. My mother had arranged it. A few neighbors attended, out of obligation. I stood at the back of the crowd, watching the coffin being lowered into the ground. My mother was crying. The other women were crying. I stood with dry eyes and an empty heart. When it was over, I walked back to the temple. Shanwu was waiting at the gate. "Are you all right?" he asked. "I'm fine." "You don't look fine." "I look how I feel," I said. "Which is nothing. Completely nothing." He studied me for a long moment. Then he said, "You need to feel it. The grief. The anger. The loss. If you bury it, it'll poison you." "I don't have time to feel it," I said. "I have work to do." He didn't argue. He just stepped aside and let me enter the temple. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay on the straw mattress, staring at the ceiling, replaying the events of the past few days. My father's face, his trembling hand, the coffin being lowered into the ground. I thought about his words. "I'm proud of you." What did that even mean? He had sold me. He had abandoned me. He had let the Lin family destroy my life. And now, on his deathbed, he had decided to be proud of me. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But maybe that was the point. That I had spent my entire life waiting for other people to validate me, to love me, to see me. And I had learned, finally, that they never would. My father couldn't. My mother couldn't. Lin Wei couldn't. The only person who could save me was me. I sat up in the dark. The fire had died down to embers, casting faint orange light across the room. I had started this journey for revenge. To destroy the people who had wronged me. And I had succeeded in part. Madame Lin was in prison. The Lins were ruined. My father was dead. But there was more to do. The Zhangs. The merchants who had profited from my family's misery. The officials who had looked the other way. The whole corrupt system that had allowed people like Madame Lin to thrive. I would tear it all down. Not for revenge. Not for justice. For myself. I walked to the fire and added another log. The flames flickered and grew. Shenwu appeared in the doorway, his face half hidden in shadow. You're still awake? Yes. Thinking about your father, thinking about what's next. He nodded slowly. The Zhangs, I agreed. I want to start tomorrow. Then you should rest. I can't rest. I can't stop thinking about it. Shenwu walked into the room and sat across from me. The firelight flickered across his scarred face. You're not the only one who's lost people, he said. I've lost everyone I ever loved. My parents. My brothers. My wife. I looked up, surprised. You were married. Her name was May. He stared into the fire. She died because of me. Because of what I did. Or what I failed to do. I don't know which anymore. What happened? He was silent for a long moment. Then he said, I was a soldier. A general. I led men into battle. I won victories. I was celebrated. And then I made a mistake. I trusted someone I shouldn't have. And my enemies used that trust to destroy everything I had built. They killed her. They executed her in front of me, he said. They wanted to watch me break. They succeeded. I didn't know what to say. I couldn't imagine that kind of pain. That kind of loss. How did you survive? I asked. I didn't want to, he said. I tried to kill myself. More than once. But I kept failing. And eventually I realized that dying was the easy way out. The harder path was living. Living and rebuilding. Living and fighting back. Against the people who killed her. Against everyone, he said. Against the system that allowed it to happen. Against the corruption and the cruelty and the greed. I couldn't bring her back. But I could make sure no one else suffered the same fate. And did you make sure? He smiled, a bitter, hollow smile. I'm still trying. I understood then. He had taken me in not out of pity, but out of recognition. He had seen something in me that reminded him of himself. The same anger. The same determination. The same refusal to be broken. Tell me about her. I said, he did.
He told me about May.
Her laugh, which sounded like wind chimes. Her love of poetry. The way she would scold him for tracking mud into the house. The way she would hold him when the nightmares came. He told me about the execution.
The crowd.
The swords. The way she had looked at him as she died, her eyes full of something that wasn't fear. By the time he finished, the fire had burned low and the sky was beginning to lighten. I never told anyone that before, he said. Thank you, I said, for trusting me. He nodded. Now you understand. Understand what? Why I do what I do. Why I help people like you. Because I know what it's like to be powerless. To watch everything you love get taken away. And I know that the only way to survive is to take that power back. I looked at the fire, then at him. I want to help you, I said. Not just with the Zhangs. With all of it. Your mission. He raised an eyebrow. It's not a mission. It's a war. A war that never ends. Then I'll fight it with you. He was silent for a long moment. Then he said, if you do this, there's no going back. You'll be cut off from your old life forever. You'll be a demon like me. I already am a demon, I said.
To them.
I've always been a demon. I might as well become one for real. He smiled. A real smile, not bitter or hollow. Then welcome to the war. We sat by the fire until dawn, planning our next move. The Zhangs. The merchants. The officials. One by one, they would fall. And at the end of it all, I would be free. The Zhangs were not difficult to find. They lived in a compound 3 times the size of the Lin household, with walls painted red and gates trimmed in gold leaf. Shen Wu had given me a map of the property, marked with the locations of the guard posts, the servants' quarters, and the private study where Zhang Wei kept his most valuable documents. Zhang Wei is not like Madame Lin, Shen Wu had said the night before. He's not a strategist. He's a bully. He uses fear and brute force to get what he wants. His weakness is his temper. His temper, when he's angry, he makes mistakes. He says things he shouldn't. He threatens people he shouldn't. And he forgets that words have consequences. I had tucked that information away, storing it alongside everything else I had learned. The morning of my visit, I dressed in my finest clothes. Not the wedding dress I had burned that weeks ago, but a robe of deep blue silk that Xin Wu had acquired from a merchant in the next town. I pinned my hair with jade combs that had once belonged to my grandmother. I painted my face with just enough color to look healthy, without looking desperate. When I arrived at the Zhang compound, the guards at the gate eyed me suspiciously. "State your business," one of them said. "I'm here to see Zhang Wei," I said. "Tell him it's the woman who brought down the Lin family." The guard's face went pale. He exchanged a look with his companion, then disappeared through the gate. I waited, my hands folded in front of me, my expression serene. He returned a few minutes later and gestured for me to enter. Zhang Wei was waiting in his private study, seated behind a massive desk covered in ledgers and scrolls. He was a large man, thick-necked and heavy-jowled, with small eyes that darted around the room like a trapped animal's. He didn't rise when I entered. "So," he said, his voice booming, "the demon's whore comes to visit me. To what do I owe the honor?" I smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. "I've come to offer you a deal."
He laughed.
"A deal? What could you possibly offer me? Your freedom?" The laughter stopped. His eyes narrowed. "Explain." "The inspector is still in the village," I said. "He's been going through the Lin family's records. And those records mention you. Repeatedly." His face reddened. "That's a lie. I had nothing to do with." "Please," I said, holding up my hand. "Let's not waste each other's time. I know about the bribes. I know about the forged deeds. I know about the loan you gave Madame Lin to buy off the tax officials. I know everything." He was silent for a long moment. Then he leaned forward, his hands flat on the desk. "What do you want?" "I want you to give me the names of everyone who worked with Madame Lin. Everyone who profited from her schemes. Everyone who helped her hide the money." "That's a long list." "I have time." He studied me, his small eyes calculating. "And if I refuse, then I give the inspector everything I know," I said. "Your name, your involvement, every single detail. And you'll end up in a cell next to Madame Lin." "You wouldn't dare. You have no proof." "You think the inspector cares about proof," I said. "He's been looking for a scapegoat for years. Anyone will do. And you're the perfect target." Zhang Wei's face went from red to white. "You're bluffing." I reached into my sleeve and pulled out a folded paper. I placed it on the desk between us. He opened it. His eyes widened as he read. It was a list, every transaction, every payment, every deception that linked him to the Lin family. I had compiled it from Shen Wu's records over the past 2 weeks. "Where did you get this?" he demanded. "Does it matter?" He slammed his fist on the desk. "I could kill you right now. I could have my men take you to the river and drown you. No one would ever find the body." "You could," I said calmly. "But then the inspector would find this list on my body, and he would know exactly who to arrest."
He stared at me.
His fists were clenched. His breath was coming in short, sharp bursts. I could see him struggling to control himself. "The names," I said. "Give me the names, and I'll make sure the inspector doesn't look too closely at your records. And if I give you the names, you'll leave me alone. I'll leave you alone." He was silent for a long moment. Then he opened a drawer and pulled out a leather-bound ledger. He flipped through the pages, muttering to himself, and then copied a list of names onto a fresh sheet of paper. "Here," he said, shoving the paper across the desk. "These are the people you want. Everyone who was involved. Everyone who profited." Happy, I took the paper and scanned it. There were 12 names. Merchants, officials, landowners. All people I had heard of. All people with power and influence. Thank you, I said, folding the paper and tucking it into my sleeve. Now get out, he said. Before I change my mind. I rose and walked toward the door. As I reached it, I turned back. One more thing. What? Take care of your temper, I said. It's going to be your downfall. His face contorted with rage. Get out. I left that night. I sat in the temple and studied the list of names. 12 people. 12 families. 12 sets of secrets and lies. The Zhongs are just the beginning, Shenwu said. The real power lies with the officials. The ones who authorize the bribes. The ones who looked the other way. Then we start with the officials, I said. No, he said. We start with the merchants. They're the ones who have the most to lose. If we can turn them against the officials will have no choice but to cooperate. How do we turn the merchants? We give them a choice, he said. They can work with us and keep their businesses. Or they can refuse and lose everything. And if they choose to fight, then we fight back. The next day, I visited the first merchant on the list. His name was Lu Dong, and he owned a textile shop in the main square. He was a thin, nervous man with a permanent tremor in his hands. I walked into his shop and waited until the customers had left. He looked up at me, his face paled. You're the one, he said. The one who brought down the Lins. Yes, I said. And now I'm here for you. What do you want, your help? He laughed nervously. My help, I'm just a merchant. I don't have any power. You have power, I said. You just don't know how to use it. I reached into my sleeve and pulled out the paper Zhang Wei had given me. I placed it on the counter. Lu Dong looked at it, his face turning even paler. That's everything, I said. Every transaction. Every payment. Every bribe. If the inspector sees this, you'll be arrested. Your shop will be seized. Your family will be destitute. You're blackmailing me. I'm offering you a choice, I said. You can work with me, and I'll make sure this information never reaches the inspector. Or you can refuse, and I'll make sure it does. He stared at me, his hands trembling. What do you want me to do? Tell me everything you know about the officials, I said. Who they are, what they've done, what they're afraid of. He was silent for a long moment. Then he began to talk. He told me about the magistrate, a man named Qin Xiu, who had accepted bribes from every merchant in the district. He told me about the tax collector, a man named Wang Fei, who had been embezzling funds for years. He told me about the inspectors who looked the other way, the clerks who forged documents, the soldiers who turned a blind eye. By the time he finished, I had filled 2 pages of notes. Thank you, I said. Your cooperation will be noted. Please, he said. Don't tell anyone I talked to you. If they find out, they won't find out, I said. I'll make sure of it. I left the shop and walked back to the temple. Shenwu was waiting for me. How did it go? He asked. He talked, I said. He told me everything. Good. He nodded. Now we have leverage. What do we do with it? We use it, he said. One by one. Carefully. Quietly. Until the whole system is exposed. I looked at the notes in my hand. 12 names. 12 families. 12 sets of secrets. We need to move fast, I said. Before the inspector leaves. Before the officials have time to cover their tracks. Then we move fast, he said. Over the next 2 weeks, I visited every merchant on the list. Some cooperated. Others resisted. One, a silk merchant named Ma Yong, tried to have me arrested. You think you can come into my shop and threaten me, he shouted. Guards. Guards. Arrest this woman. The guards came running. I didn't fight. I let them grab me, let them drag me toward the door. Before you do anything, I said calmly, you might want to check your ledgers.
Ma Yong froze.
What? Check your ledgers, I repeated. The ones you keep in the safe under your desk. The ones that list all your illegal transactions.
He stared at me.
His face went from red to white. I have copies, I said. If anything happens to me, those copies will find their way to the inspector's office. He looked at me with hatred, but I saw the fear underneath. He ordered the guards to release me. Leave, he said, and never come back. I left that night. Shenwu and I sat by the fire, reviewing the information we had gathered. We had evidence against every merchant on the list. We had names, dates, amounts. We had everything we needed. The officials are next. I said yes, he said. But we have to be careful. The officials are more powerful than the merchants. They have soldiers. They have connections. They have the law on their side. The law, I said. The same law they've been breaking for years. The same law they enforce, he said. If we make a move against them, they'll fight back. Hard. Then we need to be smarter, I said. We need to turn them against each other. He looked at me with something that might have been pride. You're learning. I had a good teacher. He smiled. Tomorrow, we visit the magistrate. The next morning, I walked into the magistrate's office with my head held high. Chun Xiu was a fat, balding man with a sweaty face and small, piggy eyes. He was drinking tea and reviewing documents when I entered. Who are you? He demanded. How did you get past the guards? I have information, I said. Information about corruption in your district.
About bribes.
About embezzlement.
He laughed.
And you think I care about that? I think you care about your career, I said. I think you care about your position. And I think you'll do anything to protect it. His smile faded. What are you talking about? I know about the bribes, I said. I know about the money you've been taking from the merchants. I know about the favors you've been selling. And I have proof. I reached into my sleeve and pulled out a folder. I placed it on his desk. He opened it. His face went pale. This is everything, I said. Every transaction. Every payment. Every name. If the inspector sees this, you'll be ruined. Your reputation. Your fortune. Your life. He stared at the papers, his hands trembling. What do you want? I want you to resign. I said. What, resign? Step down from your position. Quietly.
No faz. No scandal.
Just leave. And if I refuse, then the inspector gets this folder, I said. And you get a cell next to Madame Lin. He was silent for a long moment. Then he said, You're giving me a choice. Yes. Then I resign. The news spread quickly. Magistrate Chun Xiu resigned the next day, citing personal reasons. The tax collector followed 2 days later. The other officials, sensing the wind had changed, began to distance themselves from each other. The alliance of corruption that had dominated the district for years began to crumble. Xin Wu and I watched it from our hill above the village. We watched the chaos spread. We watched the panic grow. It's happening, I said. It's finally happening. Yes, he said. But it's not over. What do you mean? He looked at me, his dark eyes intense. The inspector is leaving in 3 days. And the officials, they're scared. Scared people do desperate things. You think they'll try to fight back? I know they will, he said. And I know who they'll come for. Who? You, he said. They'll come for you. I felt a chill run down my spine. How do you know? Because I've seen it before, he said. And because I have informants in the magistrate's office. They're planning something. A raid. An assassination. I don't know the details yet. What do? We prepare, he said. We prepare and we fight. The temple was quiet that night. The fire burned low. The wind rattled the shutters that I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Shun Wu's warning. The officials were coming. They would try to silence me. And I was ready. I had started this journey as a victim. I had ended it as a fighter. And I would not let them take that from me. In the morning, I would face whatever they threw at me. The attack came 3 nights later. I was sitting by the fire, reviewing the notes I had compiled on the remaining officials, when I heard it. A rustle in the bamboo grove. Too deliberate to be an animal. Too careful to be the wind. I looked at Xin Wu. He was already on his feet, his hand moving to the knife at his belt. They're here, he whispered. How many? At least 6. Maybe more. I reached for the small dagger. I kept tucked in my sleeve. My hand was steady. My heart was not. The first man burst through the door, a sword raised above his head. Shun Wu moved faster than I thought possible. He grabbed the man's wrist, twisted, and the sword clattered to the floor. A second later, the man was on his knees with Shun Wu's blade at his throat. Who sent you? Shun Wu demanded. The man didn't answer. His eyes darted toward the door. 2 more men came through the window. I threw myself to the side as a blade whistled past my ear. I rolled, came up with my dagger, and drove it into the nearest man's leg. He screamed and fell. Shunwu was fighting 3 men at once. He moved like water, flowing around their attacks, striking with precision. 1 man fell. Then another. I heard footsteps behind me and spun around. A 4th man was charging at me, his face twisted with rage. I ducked under his swing and drove my elbow into his ribs. He grunted and stumbled back. Behind you.
Shen shouted ispun.
Too slow. A blade caught my shoulder, slicing through my robe and into my skin. I felt the sting, the warm trickle of blood. I ignored it. I drove my dagger into the man's chest. He felt the remaining attackers were retreating, dragging their wounded with them. Within seconds, the temple was empty except for the bodies and the blood. I stood in the middle of the room, breathing hard, my dagger still in my hand. My shoulder was burning. I looked down and saw the blood soaking through my robe. "You're hurt," Shenwu said. He was at my side, his hands on my shoulders, his eyes scanning the wound. "It's nothing," I said. "It's not nothing." He led me to the mat by the fire and began to clean the wound. His hands were steady, his movements practiced. "They'll come back," I said. "Yes." "Next time, they'll bring more men." "Yes." "We need to leave."
Now.
He looked at me. His dark eyes were unreadable. "Where would we go?" "The village," I said. "The inspector hasn't left yet. We go to him. We tell him everything." "You think he'll protect us?" "I think he has no choice," I said. "If the officials are bold enough to attack us, they're bold enough to attack him. He'll want to know that. He'll want to act." Shunwu finished bandaging my wound and stood. "Wait here. I need to get something." He disappeared into the side room and emerged a few moments later with a small leather bag. He opened it and showed me the contents. Gold coins, silver ingots, a handful of precious gems. "If the inspector won't help us," he said, "these will buy us passage out of the region." "We're not running." "I'm not suggesting we run," he said. "I'm suggesting we prepare for every possibility." We left the temple before dawn. The path through the bamboo grove was dark, but we knew it by heart. We moved quickly, silently, our eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of pursuit. The inspector was staying in the magistrate's former residence, a grand house on the hill overlooking the village. The guards at the gate recognized me and let us past. Inspector Zhao was in his study, drinking tea and reviewing documents. He looked up as we entered, his sharp eyes taking in our blood-stained clothes and exhausted faces. "Explain," he said. That I told him everything. The attack. The officials' plan to silence us. The evidence we had gathered against them. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he set down his teacup and leaned back in his chair. "You've done well," he said. "But you've also made enemies. Powerful ones." "I know. Are you asking for protection?" "I'm asking for justice," I said. "The officials who sent those men broke the law. They tried to kill me. They tried to kill Shenwu. That's not just corruption. That's attempted murder. And you have proof." I pulled out the folder of evidence I had been carrying. I placed it on his desk. "Everything is there," I said. "Every name, every payment, every crime, the merchant records, the forged deeds,
The bribes.
it's all there." He opened the folder and began to read. His expression didn't change, but I saw his hands tighten on the papers. "This is comprehensive," he said finally. "I had a lot of time to compile it." He looked at me. "You want me to arrest them?" "Yes." "And if I refuse, then I take this to the capital myself," I said. "I go over your head. I go to the Minister of Justice. I go to the Emperor if I have to. I will not stop until these people are held accountable." He was silent for a long moment. Then he smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of a man who had finally found the weapon he needed. "You won't need to go to the capital," he said. "I'll handle it personally." "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," he said. "This is going to be messy. The officials have allies. They have resources. They won't go down without a fight. Neither will I." He nodded slowly. "You and your companion will stay here, in the residence, under my protection, until this is resolved. And after we'll see." He assigned us rooms on the second floor, with guards posted at the door. The rooms were small but clean, with soft beds and fresh linens. I hadn't slept on anything comfortable in months. Shinwoo stood by the window, looking out at the village below. "We're being watched," he said. "I know. The guards, the servants, the inspector's men, they're all watching us." "Let them watch," I said. "I have nothing to hide." He turned to look at me. "You've changed." "Changed how?" "You're different from the woman who came to my temple 3 months ago. More confident, more determined. You taught me to be that way." "Yes," he said, "but I didn't teach you to be reckless. And what you did tonight, fighting those men with nothing but a dagger, that was reckless." "What was I supposed to do, stand there and let them kill me?" "No. But you should have let me handle it." "I can handle myself," I said. "I know you can. That's not the point." "Then what is the point?" He took a step closer. His dark eyes were intense, searching mine. "The point is that I don't want to see you get hurt. I've lost too many people already." I felt something shift in my chest. Something I hadn't felt in a long time. "I'm not going to die," I said. "You don't know that." "Yes, I do." I reached out and took his hand. "I'm not going to die, because I have too much to do. Too many people to bring down. Too many wrongs to set right." He looked down at our hands. His was rough, scarred, calloused. Mine was smaller, softer, but no less determined. "You're not going to give up, are you?" he said. "No. Never." He squeezed my hand. "Then we do this together." Together, I agreed. We stood by the window, watching the sun rise over the village. The light crept across the rooftops, chasing away the shadows. I thought about all the people I had faced. My mother, my father, Lin Wei, Madame Lin, Zhang Wei, the magistrate. One by one, they had fallen. But there were more, always more, that I didn't care. I had found my purpose. I had found my strength. And I had found someone who would stand with me, no matter what came next. The guards knocked on the door an hour later. Inspector Zhao wanted to see us in the main hall. We went downstairs. The inspector was standing in the center of the room, surrounded by his aides. His face was grim. "I've sent men to arrest the officials," he said. "But there's a problem." "What problem?" I asked. "Some of them have already fled." "They must have been warned." "Who warned them?" "I don't know yet," he said. "But I will find out." "Fled where?" Shenwu asked. "The capital, probably. They have allies there. Powerful ones." I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. If they reach the capital, they'll be able to cover their tracks. Destroy the evidence. Bribe the right people. "Exactly," the inspector said. "Which is why I need you to do something." "What?" "I need you to go to the capital," he said. "I need you to present your evidence to the Minister of Justice personally. If anyone can stop them, it's him." "You want me to go to the capital?" I said. "Alone. I'll provide you with an escort," he said. "Guards. A carriage. Official documents. You'll be protected." "And what about Shinwoo?" The inspector glanced at him. "He'll stay here. I need him to help with the local arrests." "No," I said. "He comes with me." "That's not. He comes with me," I repeated. "Or I don't go." The inspector looked at Shinwoo, then back at me. He sighed. "Fine. He comes with you." I nodded. "When do we leave?" "Tomorrow. At dawn. I'll have everything prepared by then." We returned to our room. Shanwoo closed the door and turned to me. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "Do what?" "Insist that I come with you." "You could have gone alone." "I could have," I said. "But I didn't want to." "Why?" I looked at him. His face was in shadow, his expression impossible to read. "Because I don't want to do this without you," I said. He was silent for a long moment. Then he crossed the room and stopped in front of me. 3 months ago, he said, "I told you I didn't want to get close to anyone. I said it was dangerous. I said I'd lost too many people." "I remember." "I was right," he said. "But that doesn't mean I'm going to let you walk away." I looked up at him. His face was close to mine. I could see the scars, the lines, the pain he carried. And I could see something else. Something softer. "I'm not walking away," I said. He reached out and touched my face. His hand was rough, but his touch was gentle. "You're the most stubborn woman I've ever met," he said. I know. I don't know what I'd do if something happened to you. Nothing's going to happen to me, I said. Not if you're there to protect me. He smiled. It was a real smile, warm and open. Then I'll protect you, he said. Always. I felt something break inside me. The walls I had built around myself. The armor I had worn for so long. It all came crashing down. I don't understand, I said. I'm nothing. I'm just a woman who was abandoned by her family and her fiancé. Why do you care about me? Because you're not nothing, he said. You're the strongest person I've ever met. And you don't even see it. Don't see what? Your own strength, he said. Your own worth. You think you're just a victim, but you're a survivor. And that's so much more important. I kissed him.
I didn't think about it.
I just did it. His arms wrapped around me, pulling me close. The kiss was fierce and desperate, full of all the fear and hope and anger we had both been carrying. When we broke apart, I was breathing hard. We have to go tomorrow, I said. I know. The capital, the minister, the fugitives. I know. I don't know what's going to happen. Neither do I. But you're still coming, of course, he said. I told you.
Together.
I laid my head against his chest. His heart was beating fast, matching mine. Together, I repeated. The next morning we left. The carriage was waiting at the gate, drawn by 4 horses. The escort was a dozen men on horseback, armed and armored. Inspector Zhao stood on the steps, watching us. Good luck, he said. Thank you. I said, be careful. The capital is a dangerous place, especially for people like you. People like me, people who have made powerful enemies, he said, and I nodded. I'll be careful. But I knew I wouldn't be careful. I knew I would do whatever it took to see this through. To bring down the officials. To get justice. Shunwu helped me into the carriage and climbed in beside me. The driver cracked his whip, and we were off. I looked out the window at the village as it receded into the distance. I thought about everything I had left behind. My mother. My father's grave. Lin Wei. The Lin compound. The temple. I didn't feel sad. I felt freed. I'm ready, I said. For what? For whatever comes next, I said. The capital. The minister. The fugitives. I'm ready. Shun Wu took my hand. Then let's go. The carriage rolled on, carrying us toward the capital. Toward the final confrontation. I didn't know what we would find there. I didn't know if we would succeed. But I knew one thing for certain. I was no longer the woman who had run through the mud in her torn wedding dress. I was something new, something stronger, and I would not be stopped. The capital was everything I had imagined and nothing I had expected. The walls rose against the gray sky like mountains carved from stone. The gates were wide enough for 20 horsemen to ride through side by side. The streets were paved with smooth flagstones, and the buildings were tall, their roofs layered with curved tiles that gleamed like fish scales in the pale sunlight. But the people moved like water through a narrow channel. Fast, focused. Unwilling to stop for anyone, Shinwu sat beside me in the carriage, his hand resting on the knife at his belt. His eyes scanned the crowds, cataloging every face, every movement, every potential threat. Stay close to me, he said. Don't talk to anyone unless I'm with you. You're worried, I said. I'm cautious. There's a difference. The carriage stopped in front of a large building with a red door and gold lettering above the entrance. The Minister of Justice's office. I had seen it described in the documents Inspector Zhao had given me, but seeing it in person was different. The building was old, its walls thick with centuries of history. I could feel the weight of it pressing down on me. We're here, I said. Wait here, Shinwu said. I'll check the perimeter. He slipped out of the carriage and disappeared into the crowd. I sat alone, listening to the sounds of the city, the hawkers calling out their wares, the clatter of cartwheels on stone, the distant rumble of thunder. He returned a few minutes later. It's clear. Let's go. We walked through the red door and into a large courtyard filled with clerks and petitioners. The noise was overwhelming, voices overlapping, papers rustling, feet shuffling on the stone floor. A young man in a green robe approached us. State your business, he said. I have evidence, I said. Evidence of corruption. I need to see the minister. The young man looked me up and down. The minister is busy. You'll have to wait. I reached into my sleeve and pulled out the folder. This is urgent. Lives are at stake. I said you'll have to wait. Then we'll wait, Shinwoo said. But we'll be waiting right here. And we won't leave until we've seen him. The young man frowned. You can't just try me, Shinwoo said. His voice was calm, but there was something in it that made the young man step back. We waited. Hours passed. The sun crept across the courtyard, casting long shadows. I watched the petitioners come and go. Some were weeping. Some were shouting. Some were silent, their faces blank with despair. I thought about my own despair. The day I had run from the wedding. The day I had walked into the bamboo grove. The day I had decided to fight. I had come so far. Finally, the young man returned. The minister will see you now. He led us through a maze of corridors, past rooms filled with clerks hunched over ledgers, past guards standing at attention, past doors that opened onto gardens and courtyards. The building was a labyrinth. The minister's office was at the end of a long hallway. The doors were made of dark wood, carved with scenes of justice and retribution. The young man knocked, then opened the door and gestured for us to enter. The minister was a thin, elderly man with white hair and a face like cracked leather. He sat behind a massive desk covered in papers, his eyes fixed on a document he was reading. He didn't look up when we entered. Leave the papers on the desk, he said. I need to speak with you. I said. He looked up. His eyes were sharp, assessing. You're the woman from the south. The one who brought down the Lin family. Yes. And now you're here, with more evidence. Yes. He gestured to the chairs in front of his desk.
Seat.
We sat. I placed the folder on his desk. He opened it and began to read. His expression didn't change. When he finished, he closed the folder and looked at me. This is extensive, he said. I've been working on it for months. The officials named in this document, they have allies. Powerful ones. I know. You understand that by bringing this to me, you're making enemies of some of the most dangerous men in the empire. I understand. He leaned back in his chair and studied me. Why are you doing this? What do you want? Justice, I said. Justice, he repeated. Is that all? Yes. He was silent for a long moment. Then he smiled. It was a thin, tired smile. You remind me of someone. Someone I knew a long time ago. A woman who was also determined to bring down powerful men. What happened to her? She succeeded, he said. But she paid a high price. Her husband was killed. Her children were taken from her. She spent the rest of her life alone. I don't have a husband. I don't have children. No, he said. But you have someone. He looked at Shinwoo. And if you go through with this, he will become a target as well. I know. Are you prepared for that, for the possibility that he might be hurt or worse? I looked at Shinwoo. His face was still, but I could see the tension in his jaw. Yes, I said. I'm prepared. The minister nodded slowly. Then I will help you. I'll issue arrest warrants for the officials named in this document. I'll have them brought here for trial. But it will take time. And during that time, you'll be in danger. We'll stay out of sight, Shinwoo said. No, the minister said. You'll stay here, in this building, under my protection. We were given rooms in the eastern wing of the ministry. They were small, but comfortable. Guards were posted at the door, and we were told not to leave without an escort. The first few days were quiet. I spent them going over the evidence, looking for gaps, preparing for the trial. Shinwoo spent them watching the guards, memorizing their routines, mapping the building's exits. Something's wrong, he said on the third night. What do you mean, the guards, he said. They've been replaced.
New men.
Men I don't recognize. I felt a chill run down my spine. Maybe it's routine. Maybe. His voice was flat. But I don't think so. The next morning, I requested a meeting with the minister. He was busy, the clerk told me. He would see me in the afternoon. The afternoon came and went. He didn't see me. Something's wrong. I said. I know, Shinwoo said. We need to leave. Tonight. How the guards won't let us. They will, he said. If we're careful. That night, We gathered our belongings and waited. The guards outside our door were talking, laughing. They didn't seem to be paying attention. Shunwoo moved first. He opened the door and slipped out, silent as a shadow. I heard a muffled thud, then silence. He reappeared a moment later. "Come," he said as we moved through the corridors, keeping to the shadows. The building was dark, lit only by the occasional torch. Shunwoo seemed to know where he was going, navigating the maze of hallways with practiced ease. We reached a side door unguarded. Shunwoo pushed it open, and we stepped out into the night. The streets were empty. The moon was full, casting silver light across the cobblestones. "Where do we go?" I asked. "I have a contact," he said. "Someone who can help us. But we have to move fast." We ran, that we reached the contact's house at dawn. It was a small, run-down building on the edge of the city, hidden behind a tangle of weeds and broken fences. The man who opened the door was old, his face lined with age, his eyes milky with cataracts.
"Shunwoo," he said.
"It's been a long time. I need a place to hide," Shunwoo said. "And information." The old man looked at me, then back at Shunwoo. "She's the one, isn't she, the woman from the south?" "Yes." The old man nodded slowly. "Come in, both of you." He led us to a small room at the back of the house. It was cluttered with papers and books, but there was a bed and a table with 2 chairs. "The officials know you're here," he said. "They've been looking for you. The minister's office has been compromised." "Compromised how?" "The minister has been arrested. Charged with treason. The men who replaced the guards were working for the officials." I felt my heart sink. "Then it's over. We've lost." "No," Shunwoo said. "We haven't lost. Not yet." He turned to the old man. "Do you know where the fugitives are hiding, the officials who fled the village?" "Yes," the old man said. "They're staying at the residence of General Liu, the man who controls the city garrison." "General Liu," Shunwoo repeated. "The general who betrayed my wife." I looked at him, startled. "The general who killed her, yes." His voice was cold, hard as stone. "He's the one who ordered her execution. He's the one who made me watch." "Why would he help the officials?" "Because they're offering him something," Shunwoo said. "Power. Money. Protection. The same things they offered everyone else." "Then we need to stop him," I said. "Yes," Shunwoo said. "But we can't do it alone." The old man spoke up. "There are others. People who have been wronged by the general. People who would be willing to help." "Who?" "Former soldiers. People he betrayed. Families of the men he executed." The old man paused. "I can gather them, but it will take time." "Then we gather them," I said. "And when we're ready, we strike." Shunwoo looked at me. His eyes were dark, intense. "You're sure about this?" "I'm sure. Even if it means going up against a general, against his entire army. Even then." He reached out and took my hand. "Then we do this together." "Together," I said. The old man left to gather the others. Shunwoo and I sat in the small room, waiting. The hours passed slowly. I thought about the path that had led me here. The wedding. The fire. The evidence. The capital. It had all been leading to this moment. "I never asked you," I said. "What happened after your wife died, after the execution?" "I ran," he said. "I ran as far as I could. I hid in the mountains. I lived in caves. I ate roots and berries. I wanted to die, but I couldn't." "Why couldn't you?" "Because I wanted revenge," he said. "I wanted to see the general burn. And I knew that if I died, I would never get that chance." "So you lived?" "Yes." He looked at me. "And now, finally, I have that chance." "We'll make it happen," I said. "We'll see him burn." He smiled. It was a dark smile, but there was warmth in it. "I know we will." The old man returned the next day, bringing with him a dozen men and women. Former soldiers, widows, orphans. All of them had been wronged by General Liu. All of them wanted justice. "We're ready," the old man said. Shunwoo stood and addressed the group. "General Liu is protected by his garrison. We can't attack him directly, but we can force him to come to us." "How?" one of the men asked. "We take his son," Shunwoo said. "His only son. The one he loves more than anything." If we have the boy, the general will do whatever we ask. And what do we ask? We ask for a trial, I said. A public trial. With witnesses. With evidence. With the truth laid bare for everyone to see. The group murmured their agreement. Then it's settled, Shenwu said. Tonight, we take the boy. I looked at him. His face was hard, determined. He was going to do this. He was going to take the general's son and use him as leverage. And I was going to help him. The general's son was 12 years old. His name was Lu Feng, and he had his father's eyes, dark, cold, unyielding. I watched him from the shadows of the garden as he practiced his sword forms, his movements precise and disciplined. He was alone. No guards.
No attendants.
Just a boy and his blade. He's arrogant, Shenwu whispered beside me. He thinks he's untouchable. He's a child, I said. A child who will grow up to be exactly like his father, if we don't stop him. I felt a knot in my stomach. I had agreed to this plan. I had helped plan it. But seeing the boy now, so young and so alone, I felt something shift inside me. There has to be another way. I said, there is no other way. We could reason with him. Explain what his father did. Reason, Shenwu's voice was sharp. You think a 12-year-old who's been raised to believe his father is a hero will listen to reason. He'll run straight to his father and tell him everything. Then we lose our only advantage. I looked at the boy again. He had stopped his practice and was staring at the moon, his face unreadable. Let me talk to him. I said, absolutely not. Just give me a few minutes. If I can't convince him, we do it your way. Shenwu was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. 5 minutes. No more. I stepped out of the shadows. The boy saw me immediately, his hand going to his sword. Who are you? He demanded. Someone who wants to talk to you. I said, about what? About your father. His eyes narrowed. What about my father? I walked closer, keeping my hands visible. Do you know what he did? Do you know how he became a general? He fought in the war, the boy said. He killed the enemy. He protected the empire. He killed his own men too, I said. He executed them without trial. He executed women and children. He executed a woman named May because her husband refused to follow his orders. The boy's face went pale. You're lying. I'm not lying. I have witnesses. I have documents. I have proof. I reached into my sleeve and pulled out a folded paper. I held it out to him. He took it. His hands were trembling as he read. Your father is a murderer, I said. And he's going to be brought to justice. But I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to use you as a bargaining chip. I want you to understand the truth. You're lying, he said again, but his voice was weaker now. I'm not, I said. I'm telling you the truth. And if you come with me, I'll show you all the evidence. I'll show you the witnesses. I'll show you everything. He looked at the paper, then at me, then at the moon. His face was a mask of confusion and pain. Please, I said. Just come with me. Listen to what I have to say. If you still think I'm lying, you can leave. I won't stop you. He was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. We brought him to the old man's house. The others were waiting, their faces grim. When they saw the boy, their expressions softened. They were angry at his father, not at him. Tell us what you know, one of the women said. Tell us about your father's crimes.
The boy looked at me.
I nodded. He began to talk. He told us about the soldiers who visited his father's residence at night. He told us about the documents his father kept in a locked chest. He told us about the men who came and went, their faces hidden, their voices lowered. He told us everything. When he finished, the room was silent. The boy's face was wet with tears. I didn't know, he said. I didn't know any of this. We know, I said. And we don't blame you. You're not responsible for what your father did. But he's my father. Yes, I said. And that's why you're going to help us stop him. The plan was simple. We would use the boy to lure General Liu out of his residence. We would present the evidence in a public trial, with witnesses and testimony. The general would be exposed for what he was the night before the trial. I couldn't sleep. I walked out into the garden and found Shenwu sitting on the low wall, staring at the stars. Can't sleep, he asked. Too much on my mind. He nodded. I know the feeling. I sat down beside him. What happens after this, after the trial? If we succeed, the general is convicted. He's stripped of his title and executed. His allies are exposed. The system is reformed. And if we fail, then we run. We go somewhere far away. We start over. Together, he looked at me. Together. We sat in silence for a while, watching the stars wheel across the sky. I never thought I'd make it this far, I said. When I was running through the mud in my wedding dress, I thought my life was over. I thought I had nothing left. You had everything, he said. You just didn't know it yet. What did I have? Yourself, he said. Your strength. Your courage. Your determination. He turned to look at me. And me. I felt my heart swell. Shenwu, I know, he said. I know. But I need to say it. I need to say it before the trial, before anything happens. I love you.
I stared at him.
The words hung in the air between us. I love you too. I said. He reached out and took my hand. Then we'll face the trial together. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. The trial was held in the great hall of the Ministry of Justice. The hall was packed with people, nobles, officials, commoners, all of them craning their necks to see the proceedings. General Liu was brought in chains. He looked older than I remembered, his face gaunt, his eyes hollow. His son sat in the front row, watching him with a mixture of fear and hope. The evidence was presented. The witnesses testified. The boy spoke, his voice shaking, about the documents he had seen in his father's locked chest. Finally, the Minister of Justice, the real one, who had been released from prison after the plot was exposed, read the verdict. General Liu, you are guilty of murder, treason, and crimes against the Empire. You are sentenced to death. The execution will take place at dawn. The general's face crumpled. He turned to his son, his mouth opening to speak. The boy looked away. After the trial, I walked through the gardens of the ministry. The flowers were blooming, their colors bright against the gray stone walls. I felt lighter than I had in months. Shenwu found me there. It's over, he said. Yes. He's going to be executed. The officials are going to be arrested. Everything we fought for, it's done. I turned to look at him. And now we move forward, he said. Together. I walked to the edge of the garden and looked out at the city. The roofs stretched to the horizon, layer after layer of curved tiles and smoking chimneys. Somewhere out there, people were living their lives, struggling and fighting and hoping that I had been one of them once. A woman with no power, no voice, no future. I wasn't that woman anymore. What do we do now? I asked. We find a home, Shenwu said.
A real one.
Somewhere quiet. Somewhere safe. With a garden, he agreed. And a fire.
And a bed.
And you. I smiled. That sounds nice. It does. He took my hand. But we're not done yet. What do you mean? There are others, he said. Others like you. People who have been wronged. People who need help. We can't help all of them, but we can help some. I nodded slowly. I want to help them. I know you do. I want to make sure no one else has to go through what I went through. Then we will, he said. Together. We walked out of the garden and into the city. The streets were crowded, but we moved through them easily. Our hands clasped together, we passed the tea houses and the shops, the temples and the stalls. We passed the places where the powerful had gathered and the powerless had suffered. We passed a young woman crying on a street corner, her clothes torn, her face bruised. I stopped. I'll go to her, I said. Are you sure? Yes. I let go of his hand and walked over to her. Are you okay? I asked. She looked up at me, her eyes full of fear. Who are you? My name is... I paused. What was my name? The name I had been born with no longer fit. It was the name of a girl who had been sold and betrayed and abandoned. It was time to choose a new one. My name is May, I said. After a woman I never knew, but who inspired me to fight. The girl blinked. I don't understand. You don't need to understand, I said. You just need to know that you're not alone, that there are people who will help you, people who will fight for you. I held out my hand. Come with me, I said. I'll take you somewhere safe. She hesitated. Then she took my hand and I led her back to Shenwu. He looked at me, his eyes full of questions. Her name is May. I said. He understood. We need to find her a place to stay. Let's go back to the old man's house. He'll help us. I turned to the young woman. Everything will be all right. She looked at me with something that might have been hope. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, I said. We have a long way to go. But even as I said the words, I knew we would make it because I had found my purpose. I had found my strength, and I had found someone who would stand with me. No matter what came next, the sun was setting over the city, casting long shadows across the streets. I walked with Xinwu and the young woman, the three of us heading toward a new beginning. I thought about the wedding dress I had burned, the demon I had married, the lives I had destroyed, and the lives I had saved. I thought about the woman I had become. And I smiled. The fire I had started had not consumed me. It had forged me into something new, something unbreakable, and I was ready for whatever came next.